We are now on page 35 of your working file, the subject of outline properties. Now, while this may seem a simple subject, and it is in many ways, it's a subject that will affect every industry. No matter where you work, this will be important to you. So we are going to have 2 lessons here on this page. And first of all, I will quickly need to recap with you, and a couple of these things will also be new. The different types of objects that we have, that we work with, and how we can change the outline properties. So the first type of object shape we have is what we called a common shape object, which is being depicted by this rectangle here. Now the reason it's a common shape object, or you could call it a basic shape object if you wanted to. The point is, CorelDRAW recognizes how the shape was made and how it was made using the rectangle tool, and the advantage of creating of that way is, of course, we can apply other quick properties to it, such as changing the corners, or of course we can, using the shape tool, make the corner round. So we have advantages in working with common shape objects. This principle applies to, of course, the ellipse tool, the polygon tool, any of these shaped tools, any of these tools that you use to create shapes that have advantages to us, we call the common shape objects. The reason why I am talking about this is to show you that common shape objects, at least on the property bar, allow us to access the outline thickness, the outline width, as we can see here in points. The PT stands for points. I can change the outline thickness by simply using the drop-down. The other thing I want you to see is that for every shape type we are about to look at, of every object type, I should say, properties on both the property bar and down here in the status bar will appear. As you can see, the status bar says it's a rectangle on layer. That's the outline color. Sorry, the fill color, I should say, and the outline color. On the property bar, as you will know, the properties, and in this case at least the outline thickness. Well, that's a common shape object. The next object type I want to look at is a text object. When you select the text object, there is nothing on the property bar about outline thickness, type, color, etc. All I can really do is right-click to change a color, and that is the only effect I can easily do to my outline. Again, on the status bar, artistic text fill on outline color is depicted for us. If I moved down to these 2 next objects, all I have called it a line object and a curved line object. But actually, CorelDRAW calls them just simply curves. So either one of these is both referred to as curve. So if I click this last object, you will notice this is also referred to as curve. The reason is that I took this piece of text and I converted it to curves, which makes it a converted to curves object. If you like, simply call that an object or just an artistic or a graphic object. The point is, I took this piece of text and I converted it to curves, which means that this object now consists of lines and curves connected together with nodes. Let me show you how I did that. I will pop that over here, select that, right-click and drag. I will shrink that down size a little. We can still see on the property bar and the status bar that it's easy text. However, if I use Ctrl plus Q, I can convert it to curves, or up to a range and convert to curves. Click. Now no longer do I see any text relevant information. It's now simply considered an object that's made up of lines, straight lines, and curves joined together by nodes. If I select the shape tool, and I will zoom in, as you can see, these little squares here, as I hover over, become highlighted. They are what we call nodes, and I have got a straight line, and I have got a curve, and in fact, over time, as you learned, we have got a module just on working with lines, curves, and shape editing, etc. Converted curve objects simply consist of lines and curves. I can select the node, the shape tool, I can move it, and I can actually begin to reshape the object, and that's one of the advantages of objects being converted to curves. Alright, Now the reason I have shown you that is because the properties available on the property bar now extend a little further relative to outline properties. Let me delete that. Pull this back over here. Now that we have an object converted to curves, I will come back to this basic one. The properties available are, I can, for example, change my outline property to a dotted line. I can even add arrows to either end of the line. Now that becomes very handy when creating flowcharts, etc. If I select this one, I can change that to say, for example, that type of dotted line. And of course I could edit different types of ends if I wanted to. This all sorts of electronics ends. Let's go to one of those, and on the other end I will add something rather different, a pitchfork, so you can play with that and obviously come up with interesting things. If I select this object, I can simply go back to let's just go to a normal outline. I can change the outline thickness. One last thing I want to show you, when you have got a common object, you will notice up here that this will become available, convert to curves. It's the exact same thing as Control Q is going to arrange, converting to curves. If I were to select this, you will now notice that that same set of an outline properties become available because it's no longer a common shape. It's considered a curve. Control Z, I will quickly undo that. Well, I said all of that so you could simply see the different properties we have available without going to the next step. The next step is coming over here to the outline pane and to the little flyout. Click and bring up all of these additional properties. Let me, for example, go back to my piece of text. I can't affect the outline thickness, but I can very quickly come over here, click, and access one of the preset thicknesses. So for example, 2 point. Did you notice as the outline thickness changes, the spacing between all of those dots changed as well? Well, that can be a little annoying, which means we need to deal a little further. So what I'm going to do now is bring this flyout out, drag it out here. I am going to dot the flyout up here. So I have got quick access. In fact, what I will do is slide it down to the middle here, so I have access to everything that is sitting in the flyout here. So I will quickly show you this. Well, to bring up the dialog box that allows us to access all outline properties, I need to first select my object. One or two things. I can simply click Outline Pin there, over there in the flyout, or just F12 on my keyboard. Now do that, F12, and that brings up the outline pane properties. Here is where we can really begin to use the power of outline. Now quickly finish this subject, then we are going to stop and move on to our next lesson after this. I am looking at the dotted outline, and as you can see from the drop down, there is a number to choose, this one here, and I click OK. It's a series of dashes and dots to let me zoom in for convenience. Select that text, F12. Again, now let's say it just simply doesn't look right. What can we do? Well, the first thing I want to show you, as I said earlier, the thickness does affect the spacing. So if I drop this back to say 1.5, click OK. Well, that does look better. However, bring it up again. If I drop back to 1 point, click OK, that does look better. But let's assume that the spacing is not quite right. What can we do? Bring up the dialog box again. If we click Edit Style, we can use this little tool here to create arrow and spacing. It takes a minute to get your brain to think about this, but basically where the black area is, that is the black line. Where the dot is a white space. So when I spread this out, I am actually affecting the spacing that you can see. I can click on the white dot and remove it, so I am creating little dots and dashes. So black is the black, and the white is the white. I can close the spacing up a little bit if I want to, and I will loosen dots in the process. So let's say that's what I want. I can replace or add that as a new style. Click OK. We have created a brand new style. So go ahead now, and I want you to just reproduce all of what you see me do here, and then we'll move on to the next lesson.